and welcome to another episode of Our Own Devices with Nandagopal Rajan. As is our promise, we have another guest with us, and we are going to again learn a lot of new things because we are going to talk again about that point where technology is moving to new realms. Girish Raghavan works with Wipro GE Healthcare, and he's head of technology there. Girish, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nandu. Thanks so much for the opportunity, Nandagopal, to talk to this group.
So, Girish, before we get into the questions, can you just introduce exactly how do you work? What all do you do with GE Healthcare?
Okay, so if you look at today, GE Healthcare is perhaps one of the most technologically savvy organizations we have today. So, if you look at some of the primary objective of the work we are trying to do is to marry the healthcare requirements what we have in saving patients' lives in moments that matters with technology. So there's a lot of convergence between how technology could help significantly in making healthcare much better and smarter as we go forward. So the primary objective of what we do in the tech center is to see how we can marry both. How do we use some of the most advanced technologies we have in artificial intelligence, in machine learning, in cloud computing, 5G, etc. And how do we use those technologies to advance the clinical care, what we have for our patients and clinicians alike? So that is primarily what we work on.
So, if I understand this right, a lot of this is also driven by the fact that you finally have access to tons of data, right? And data of all sorts of things, which lets you run, models on those, come and find these small, interesting trends, which otherwise wouldn't have been possible. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true. See, so look at Nandagopal, the primary mission after which most of the healthcare companies are after, including GE Healthcare, is around precision health, right? So today, if you look at health, is not personalized today, right? It is generic. It's so generic in nature to such an extent that if you go to a doctor in a month of, I would say April, May, June, right? It's COVID period. They will most probably say you could have COVID as a potential, right? And then you go through so many, depends on the season you go through, right? Recently, my mother had a health issue, and it was a dengue season. So they went to dengue tests. Then after some time, they went to malaria tests. Finally, it was COVID, right? So it depends on what season you are in today. Especially it happens with kids, with schools reopening, so on and so forth. So today, the focus of healthcare has been towards personalization. Right? Personalization is making sure that you give the right diagnosis and right treatment to the right person, as second generalizing it. To get to that mission, what we have, Nandagopal, one of the primary things is data, right? So if you want to personalize medicine, if you want to make medicine more precise, what you have, then you need to have so much of data on which you can collaborate and augment it, and then come with a very good diagnosis and treatment. So take an example of cardiac care, for instance, right, or oncology, for instance. Especially in oncology space, a lot of work happening with precision medicine. Right? You need to marry data from genomics with imaging information, right, with pathology information, right, and then you have to triangulate all this information together to come with the right prognosis and right treatment for the patient. And that's exactly where the data comes into place. The big data comes into place in this space. The other area which is very important is also on vaccine development. Look at the space of pharma. And we have seen this today during the COVID as well, right? But if you go back and look at the pharma world or vaccine development space is around this. Right? You need lots and lot of data, big data, to come with understanding the right cohort which you have to go and apply something on, right? So all those things plays a very big important role as far as big data is concerned. So I would say that today, as we march towards precision health or personalized healthcare, big data is one of the key enablers to helping us to get there.
This also means that doctors, for instance, have visibility on a lot of things that they wouldn't have been able to see with the naked eye, literally. Like especially when you have an AI layer working on top of imaging, because it's just looking at maybe millions of similar images it has seen, and it is telling you, hey, there are three or four points that you maybe need to focus on.
Yeah, so I would break this into two parts, Nandagopal. One is that today, if you look at most clinicians are very highly burned out, right? Especially the best clinicians are highly burned out. So what they used to see maybe 10 X-rays a day. Today they see 100 a day, right? It is so much, and it's not humanly possible for somebody to have the same level of, I would say, the attention, right, from morning 8 o'clock to maybe night 10 o'clock in the night. It's impossible, practically not possible. So that's exactly where AI comes into place, Nandagopal. So AI actually helps use these technologies to assist the physicians to make the right call. So, for instance, right, you have a radiologist getting into a radiology room, and for the day he's got say 100 CTs to look into and make a report. The AI solutions will help him, assist him, and say, look, I think you should look at this area. Maybe this is a good patient. Don't worry. You can look at it, scan through quickly and make a decision. So I want to make it very clear. We are only assisting. AI technology is assisting clinicians. We're not going to make decisions for them, but we will assist them. We will tell them, you can look at this data, look at this part of the image. Okay, maybe this is not look abnormal from the rest of the population what we have. So all those things makes very important. So that is one part is a clinician part of it. The which is a very important area, right? How the clinician data comes together. The other space I want to reiterate is also on the whole space of the precision medicine space, right? Because today, if you look at a patient walking into a doctor's office, the doctor only has records for a foreseeable feature of time, right? Maybe last 3 months of record, maybe 2 months of record. And typical doctors, right, the high flyer doctors, they maybe spend a minute and a half or 2 minutes looking at the file what they bring in. So it's not practically possible for a doctor to look at a X-ray image and triangulate it to the pathology report what he has got, right? And then triangulate this into maybe the prescription which has been 6 months back. It's not practically possible in that 1.5 period of time, but 1.5 minutes what he has got in front of him. So that's exactly where technology comes into place. So what technology would do, Nandagopal, is it would take data from various sources. It will take your pathology data, it will take your imaging data, it will take your X-ray images, it may take your ECG data, right? And it will aggregate information and provide insights, which are very useful for the physician. So if I'm a clinician, I have a patient coming with a bulk big file, which has got maybe 3 years or 5 years of history, as against a solution which is able to pull things together and giving insights saying that, look at this, for this population of data, maybe this is applicable, right? Giving him a thought-provoking thing will actually help in 2 ways. One, it will help a long way towards precision medicine. Okay. Second, it will also help a long way toward democratization of healthcare, right? So I still recall many years back, when I was in school those days, my mother, for a heart procedure, there were only 2 doctors in South India, just 2. Okay. If at all she had to get a consultation done, she had to go to Chennai or she had to go to Coimbatore. No other options available in the southern part of the country, right? But today that's not true. Thanks to technology, right? The bar has been supported amply by data, right? So a clinician can make good decisions without having the experience what he needs to have, 30, 40 years of experience. He can make the same level decision thanks to technology. So I think these are the 2 areas I would think, Nandagopal, which actually plays a huge role today.
So you mentioned how, the technology is now capable of bringing in data from different verticals, so to say, and give that that composite bullet point kind of understanding for the physician or the doctor to take a call. But in a country like India, especially, do we have the right kind of data coming from all the sources that you would want to, or is there a little bit of a technology refresh that we would have to do across the country so that the data points are good enough for this kind of an aggregation?
It's a very good question, Gopal, right? It's exactly the problem the government of India is also trying to solve. And I would say this is not specific to India, Nandagopal. I think it's applicable in most countries.
It's a global problem. Yeah.
If you go to the most advanced countries in the world, you'll have precisely the same problem. Because today, the system which have been built today for healthcare infrastructure has been built over the last 30, 40 years, right? It does not build overnight. So it's impossible for anybody at that point in time to have foreseen what would have required, right, 40 years later and build systems with that kind of broader perspective. It's just not practically possible. So today, the problem what you're facing is very valid. Today, if you go to 10 hospitals today in any city you would like, I'm sure they have different IT systems, right? Yeah. So if you look at the government of India, what we're doing from India perspective, there is a lot of things happening towards National Digital Health Mission. All those things are trying to bring some convergence, but there is some kind of standardization happening between 2 disparate systems. So it's not practically possible, Nandagopal, to go back and say, okay, just refresh all the 40 old IT systems and go with new one because it's not financially viable. So what governments across the world are advocating is to build interfaces which will help to translate from whatever system you have, doesn't matter, but to a common format which could be understood by others, right? So the National Digital Health Mission or the Ayushman Bharat work which is happening today, and for I would say more so happening in most countries across the world, is pretty much in the same space. The advantage what we have today, Nandagopal, is also we don't have that great systems today in place, right? If you look at like the Western countries or some advanced countries, it has taken 40 years to build it. If we look at today, India, in urban cities, you have good IT systems which have been built in over the last 40 years or last 20 years, I would say. But if you go to a tier 2, we don't have that. So it's an opportunity for us to build systems at this point in time, which is much more easier as against replacing old systems which have been built over the last two to 3 decades, right? So that puts us in a little bit of advantage situation because we have the flexibility to build systems for today, okay, as against anticipating what should have been built 30, 40 years ago.
So, and in this thing, do you think it has to be a government-driven kind of an initiative? Because at the end of the day, you have like maybe two big pillars in India, which is public and private healthcare. So, is it possible that we have a standardized layer because the government mandates that this is how you need to keep your data in the kind of basic minimum that is required across the board?
Yeah. So today, what we are seeing today across the globe and the governments are playing a very important role, especially in the post-COVID world. We are seeing that the government's engagement on healthcare infrastructure has gone up tremendously, right? Because there's no other way, there's no other player. So I don't think the private players can come together and agree on a consensus, right?
Yeah.
So government today, just like the way if you look at UPI as an example, right?
Mm-hmm.
The government of India took effort to build a UPI infrastructure on which pretty much every banks today are leveraging today, right? Every small trader is leveraging. The backbone is built by the government for the financial sector, right?
Yeah.
Similarly, the health sector, the government is taking initiative and they have been building a very robust backbone, right? It's already built. All it takes is for healthcare providers to come onto the platform and leverage the platform. So that is how I see it happening in most countries. If you go look at European countries, pretty much the same thing. The government plays a very important role in building the backbone and infrastructure, okay, on which others can build. So government has no role to play in deciding what happens in the platform. It just builds the platform, and they expect people to comply with the platform and do the way similarly to the way UPI works today.
Yeah. So you also have the government, creating a structure where literally every person in the country is identified from a health perspective, right? And that would be an important building block in this space, right?
Yes, precisely. See, I think what governments across the world are doing, Nandagopal, is they're trying to put the patient at the center of the healthcare ecosystem, okay? Which is very different from what we have been accustomed to for the last many decades, right? So when patient comes to the center of the ecosystem, today I may be in Bangalore, okay, meeting a doctor today in Bangalore. Maybe 30 years later, I may be in Assam, hypothetically, right? Yeah. And there I would want to get the records, right? So there is a trail which is maintained where with my consent, right, I can pull records which happened many, many years back, right, through the infrastructure what the government is building, and then try to leverage it to the physician who's available there, right? So the whole thing, what the government is doing is putting the patient at the middle of the ecosystem, right, and providing them with the tools and techniques required for them to provide the best care which is available and which is more personalized in nature as well.
Yeah, but I'm sure this is not easy, right? Putting this up together, especially for a country as big and as diverse as India, it's not going to be easy. And again, so much of legacy, so much of baggage that comes into play here. So, what do you think are the biggest challenges in having or into getting into this sort of data superhighway for health tech?
Yeah. So I would say there are two big challenges here. I would say 2, 3 perhaps. One is to get the hospital ecosystem onto the framework, right? Because if you don't have hospitals coming onto the infrastructure, it's going to be a big challenge because that is how and there'll be some reluctance initially. There'll be some kind of, I would say, some kind of reservation, right, in getting onto the backbone because you're going to pass information which is there in the hospitals, what they call it is private for them, right, which is within the wall. They're going to share it. If I'm a patient and getting treated in hospital A, I go to hospital B. I want to pull my records for hospital B. This is something which it is not something which is very common today in the country, right? So that is definitely one big roadblock, right, to make this happen. And of course, there are things like hospital A wants records to be kept. Hospital B will not share. Hospital B because of competitive reasons, right? The second thing is common man. The whole infrastructure will work only when we have a huge set of our population onto the framework, right? Otherwise, it's not going to work. So both these are going to be huge challenges which the government has to, has to go through and try to overcome this. There's no other shortcut there. But the only hope we have today, Nandagopal, is because of our history, right? So we have gone to something which is far more complex than this through the UPI system. The financial reforms which the government introduced was much more Herculean task compared to what we are trying to do with healthcare. If we can do it there, I'm sure we can do it here. Aadhaar is another good example, right? Another very, very complex, I think both UPI and Aadhaar are something which no other country in the world has ever tried. Okay, it's so complicated, and we were as a country able to do it today. And today, UPI, if you go to even a small laundry store, you have a Paytm or a Google Pay there, which people use very efficiently, right? So I think we have hope. We have examples of doing this in the past. It's just a matter of time when we will be able to get there.
So how does a GE healthcare fit into this kind of a platform, this kind of a narrative? How do you do you work with the governments more, or do you work more with the with the hospitals? How does that happen?
So we work on both sides. One side is we are very closely, like most healthcare players, we are very closely linked with or working with the government in various platforms through industry bodies, trying to work with them on what the platform should be, what capability should have, right? Because we are coming with a lot of in-depth experience in healthcare space, right? We try to give them information on what to do, how to do. Some input, they reach out to us in terms of what are the challenges we are facing in other parts of the world, etc. So that's one part. The other part is that being a manufacturer of a medical device and being close with the hospitals, we also tell them the capabilities, what we have to help them to get onto the platform, right? So we have to make sure on both sides we're able to push it so that both sides they're able to marry together and converge at some point. So we have to work on both sides.
Looking at the future, what are the things that you are most excited about in this space? Where you think the biggest impact is going to happen?
Yeah. So if you look at, I would probably take two areas from an outcome perspective and then talk about the technology part, which is going to help us get there. Two big trends we are seeing today, Nandagopal, in the healthcare space is the whole question of precision medicine, which I just covered already, right?
Yeah.
Put patient in the middle of everything, and we are personalizing medicine as per his requirement. Second is making systems smarter and intelligent, right? See, today what's happening is if you look at our the CT systems or X-ray or any healthcare equipment we have, there is a level of competence required to use the system, right? And there are a lot of manual errors possible in the system. And if you look at Western world today, Nandagopal, the third largest cause of death is medical errors, right?
Yeah.
After cardiovascular and oncology, that is the third largest cause of death. So we want to eliminate manual errors possible, right? So what we are trying to do, so one is precision medicine, second is the whole question of smart equipments or intelligent systems, right? So in the case of intelligent systems, what we're trying to do, we are trying to marry data with AI to make the systems tell the technologists what to do as against the other way around. So in a traditional world, what happens is the technologists would tell the CT scanner, okay, start the exam, stop the exam, right? Push the images, etc. Right? In the systems of the future, and maybe even today, and as we go forward, the systems are going to be so smart that the system would tell the operator what to do. The system would come and tell the operator, look, I think the patient has moved too much. The image may not be of good clinical quality. So just stop and take the image once more before the patient leaves the hospital, right? Or could assess assuming the technologist is a new person who has joined in the recent years, the system could tell the technologist what he should do step by step, right? So that he can easily operate the system. Or for that matter, the system could be so smart that it will go and talk to other systems in the ecosystem, in the hospital ecosystem. It will talk to EMR system, or could a hospital information system, could be a radiology information system, right? They'll talk among each other, and then they will collate, and they will advise the technologist what to be done, right? Or could be even as simple as reporting, right? When when a clinical procedure is complete, the system can automatically build a report and give it to the clinician for reviewing and pushing it off. Could be as smart as scheduling, right? So there are a lot of things possible. So the whole ecosystem will become so smart and intelligent, right? That the system would be much more seamless and easy to work on. So if you look at, if you keep the intelligent systems in place, if you keep the precision medicine as one of the two themes, if you step back and see what is going to enable us to get there, definitely the whole new technologies what we have is going to play a big role. Be it cloud computing is going to be significantly important, because cloud is going to be the core of the operating system of the healthcare of the future, right? Because you have data in cloud, and People from any hospital can access however they want. Clinicians can access however you want. The data is in the patient's hand. That is definitely one. 5G is going to definitely revolutionize healthcare for sure, Nandagopal. As you go forward, you're going to see with 5G getting adopted, the area of ambulatory care will see 5G making a big impact. So 5G is definitely a big one. Cybersecurity is going to play a significant role with all this things happening today. With cloud and virtual care and so on and so forth, it's going to make a big difference. There's a lot of focus happening towards virtual care, remote patient monitoring. See, today, what happens if somebody goes to a hospital, after a procedure, he has to stay in hospital for a very long period of time, right? The healthcare of the future, the patient can leave the hospital and go back to his home when the patient is being constantly monitored by his doctor. Okay, so the doctor can monitor hundreds of patients at the same time, tracking their SpO2, their blood pressure, respiratory counts, etc. And when they see an abnormality, they can quickly act on it. And the patient is at home at their own comfort, as against being in hospital for a long period of time, which is not required. So the wall between an hospital and home is going to get broken. Okay, today it happens only when you enter the hospital, we feel we are in hospital, right? And we leave the hospital, you feel that you're out of control. That is going to the wall is going to be shattered. So technology is going to play a huge role in making sure that, and then of course, the fundamental of all this is going to be AI and deep learning, because nothing of this will work without the data science and AI technologies. Now, if you look at what GE Healthcare is doing specifically in the Gopal, we have built an Edison platform, right? So Edison platform is perhaps one of the most comprehensive platform built in a healthcare industry, right? So what it provides is, as a company, we know that we can't solve all the problems in the world. If you take just cardiology itself, right? It's such a vast area that as a company, no company can have all the solutions. So what we done in Edison platform is we build a platform which is so flexible and so open that any third-party company can make their applications and they can sit on the Edison platform, right? So it's for some way, I would say it is more like our iPhone, where you have iOS, you have lots of apps available. Apple doesn't build all the apps, right? Apple maybe 5% of the apps what they have. The remaining 95% comes from people across the globe. And I can download the app and I can use it the way I want, right? As long as they comply with the iOS operating system. Similarly, Edison is going to be the operating system for GE Healthcare, and any startup or any company, including GE, can build apps which are complying with the Edison platform. And if I'm a customer in a hospital, I can download the apps which I want, and I can have full continuum of care, right? So if I'm a cardiology hospital, I can go to my marketplace, I can download all the apps which are required for a price, and then I can build a solution which is going to solve my problem. So that is, I think, a very defining moment in GE Healthcare, where we are building Edison platform, a very open architecture through which we can collaborate much smoothly with third-party companies, third-party startups, our own business units, what we have, to provide our customers a much more seamless experience today, right? So today, if you look at one of the challenges our customers are facing in the Gopal is that if you go to a hospital, there are so many applications today. They don't know which one to use, how to use, where to use, right? They look upon companies like GE to advise them on what to be done. So this is exactly what we're going to do and what we're doing today.
So, I have one last question. So, you mentioned how technology is enabling uh, uh, or reducing the human error, for instance, right? But you're also working with a lot of technology which is still, is cutting edge, just developing, like AI, ML has been there for a while, but it's still evolving. Does this mean that, like, even doctors and everybody who are involved in this system, they also have to upskill now to reach this level?
Definitely not. See, we expect doctors to be more technology savvy for sure, but one of the primary objective of technology is to abstract that from our consumer, from our customers, right? So we're not expecting our clinicians to become AI or ML experts, because that is the job of technology. Okay, but the underlying technology is going to help them to get there. Like, for example, a computer, for example, right? If you look at a computer, we don't expect us to know what is an Intel chip,
how it works,
etc. We're just using it like a user. If you don't do it, the technology will not help. It's not practically possible for doctors to kind of skill set. It's not their core competency. So as technology providers, we have to abstract the complexity of technology and provide them in a simple form, so that it is going to help them get to their mission, as against being a roadblock to their mission.
So thank you, Girish, for giving us this wonderful insight on how data and technology is helping improve precision, healthcare. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for the opportunity.
So you were listening to Girish Raghavan from GE Healthcare. And this is Nandagopal Rajan saying bye for another episode. We'll be back again next week with another guest and a lot of new things to learn. Till then, we are available everywhere you listen to your podcasts.